Hey now my YouTube peeps! I gotta adjust this weird little camera. I'm not holding it, I put it on my selfie stick this morning. Just because I wanted to. Anyhow, today's video is actually a response to a comment that was left on my video from last night, my bath time confessional. Don't you hate it when you're trying to do a video and your damn cell phone rings? Ah, it's horrible. I know there must be some way I can set it so that it just ignores it while I'm doing videos, but I haven't figured it out. Okay, so anyhow, DecemberChelle, if you look at her comment under that video, she asked some really great questions, and they were so great that I thought that I would make her comment the subject of today's video. So here we go. I'm gonna read you the comment first. She says, Cheryl, I was wondering if on your next trip would it be easier to leave the trailer and take hotels? Did you feel like having the trailer made it harder to get into places like for sightseeing, or cause problems with finding places to stay because of time restraints? Also, as a native Californian, our dream was to retire, sell the house, and live somewhere cheaper. Being that you went to so many states, did you feel that any particular state was a great place to relocate? We were thinking about South Missouri or North Arkansas. Any thoughts? I'm afraid I would feel like you did and just want to return home to Central California. But the crime and expenses are so bad in our area, and it's not getting any better. Thank you for this video, Chelle. Well, first of all, thank you for the really thoughtful comment, Chelle. It's you know, continuing to make me think about the fallout of this trip. I mean, it really was profound. The things I'm figuring out about myself, and it hasn't all just happened in one big felled swoop. Things occur, you know, every day. I'll think about something new, and your comment was a really good prompt. So let's get into it. First of all, hotels or trailers? Well, that all depends on what your goal, I guess, is for your vacation. Abigail and I wanted to do a vacation that was as close to pick up everything and leave and don't tell anybody and just hit the road as we possibly could. Well, of course, we can't do that, but we could just have a general idea of where we wanted to go, alert some people ahead of us that, hey, we might come see you, and just point our noses towards the nearest thing we needed to do or place we wanted to see without real constraining plans. So we didn't do any, or very little, any setting up of reservations and that sort of thing. This is my husband. Husband, stop talking because I can't think when you talk. Okay. So anyhow, we didn't do reservations. Oh, he tells me airplane mode is what I'm supposed to do. Okay. Now, so let me get back to that, hotels or trailers. Abigail and I actually talked about that while we were on the trip. We were thinking, you know, if you want to go and see a certain area, like let's say our deal was we wanted to go and see the leaves change on the East Coast, we would probably set up maybe a 3-week trip where we'd go in about the time the leaves are changing, get hotels, bed and breakfast, rent a car, drive around to see our friends that are, you know, within, I don't know, 200-mile radius or something, and just kind of hang out in one area and use hotels. With this particular trip, a trailer was really the only way to go. It allowed us to know that no matter what kind of a situation we were in, we would be able to pull over and sleep just about anywhere. There are state parks all over, there are Walmarts all over, Cabela's, RV parks, friends' driveways. I mean, there's just so many different places you can stay. There are, I'm watching a woodpecker. They're so beautiful, even though they're destroying my shed. Anyhow, just so many places you can stay when you have a trailer. Now, also, Abigail's trailer was quite small, 19 feet ultralight. So, unless we were hauling up some hill, I didn't even feel the thing behind me. So, the driving it was actually easy. Except for that, and this is interesting, it was my first time driving a trailer, so I was extremely aware of where the trailer was behind me at all times and what other traffic was behind me too. So I was constantly looking in mirrors, looking up, looking to the side, asking Abigail to look, and I was tense and trying to be on point the whole time. So it is tiring to drive with the trailer for that reason. So, yeah, the answer is it depends on what your goal is. Number 2, was it hard to sightsee with the trailer? Not really, because most of the iconic places that anybody would go to, Yellowstone, Devil's Postpile, Niagara Falls, the you know, those sorts of places. The trailer, they generally have RV parking and bus parking, so if you do a little research ahead, maybe get the lay of the land, figure out where you're supposed to drive to find the parking, which I didn't do, and which ended up being a nightmare in Niagara Falls particularly. If you kind of have a general sense of where you're going, then no, the sightseeing part is easy. It is a little tough to go into towns, villages particularly, and find a place to park if you want to go to a restaurant or see a little museum or something. For example, when we were in West Virginia, Abigail and I wanted to see an Appalachian Arts Museum, Arts and Music Museum, which we did see, but the town, what there was of it, was so narrow and so old and so tiny that you know, you go through town in 3 blocks and then you get up into like hilly residential, and turning around was, it's like I didn't think I was ever going to find a place where I could safely turn around. That was a nerve-wracking. We did, though, manage to parallel park on the side of the street as we were heading out of town, crossed the street, went into the museum, and came back. But we were kind of in the street a little bit. It bothered me. It made me a little nervous. Incidentally, I haven't done a video about that place yet, and I want to because it was so cool. The man who was the curator, I guess, he kind of ran the show in there. It was so interesting and informative, and talked a lot about the history of the museum and the different artists that were represented there, so it was really neat. The town was very cool too. It was old and interesting, just interesting. This is an aside. I would really like to spend more time in West Virginia because from the interstate, West Virginia is hidden. You don't really know what's there. You have to drive up little mountain roads and down little mountain roads and follow little wooden signs, and it's mysterious and interesting to me, so I want to go back. So anyhow, yeah, sightseeing with a trailer or RV of some type really isn't hard. But it makes a case for hauling a sightseeing vehicle. You know, you'll see people in RVs with a small car or something behind them. I really understand how that could be valuable, particularly if you were on long RV trips. Let's say you wanted to go out, you and your husband wanted to go out for 6 months and see the United States. Having a little car like that would be nice, particularly if you get into areas where car rental places are few and far between. So, yeah. What about time restraints when you're looking for a place to stay and you're wanting to sightsee? And I think what you're asking is, how quickly do you need to pull out of your sightseeing location so that you can go find an RV park? Again, a lot of that I think is planning, would be good planning. The next time around, if if I'm a couple days out from a sightseeing place that I know I want to go to, I will call around, use the internet, find an RV park, and book it. Now, towards the end of the trip, Abigail had become an expert in doing that. I mean, she had that internet going and her telephone, and she would find us places ahead, you know, she would read the reviews on them. She was just so good at navigating us through areas and to places to stay. Navigating us to Walmarts that allowed parking, because not all of them do. And then kind of learning the subculture of that, because even though they might say they don't allow RV parking or trucker parking, they actually do, but they don't want you to ask them, because then they have to say yes or no. If they say yes, there's a liability issue. So it's really interesting, the kind of the politics of Walmart parking lot. It is really interesting. So no, not really. You don't really feel time constraints. A lot of the places that we stayed that were RV parks were, you could pull in after hours and just park, and then you'd pay as you left. A lot of them worked that way, and there were several times that we pulled in after hours. Again, just about everywhere in this great nation of ours, you're going to find a Walmart. I did check to see the Dollar Generals, but it wouldn't surprise me if truckers park in lots behind Dollar Generals as well, because that's the other thing. You know, there's Walmarts along most interstates, and then along most state highways and stuff, you're going to find Dollar Generals, particularly in the South. It was interesting, because we don't have a lot of Dollar Generals here in my area anyway, and if we do, they're in town. So that was kind of interesting to see them, you know, along little rural highways. Let's see. All right. What states would be good for relocating if you're looking for a cheap retirement? You know, I'm still answering that question. Like I said, part of what I learned this time is that where I live right now, at my age, 56, is the right place for me to be. And much of that has to do with my family. Like, you know, my mama is in assisted living and still alive, obviously. And I don't want to pull up stakes until she's gone, because I know that, you know, every day I spend with her, every outing that we take will be fondly remembered, and I will be thankful that I made that a priority. So that's one of the biggest reasons I'm not thinking about relocating. Also, my kids and I are joined at the hip. I mean, we just are. It's not that I wouldn't imagine one of them to up and move to a different part of the country, but I just kind of don't think so. We're very enmeshed, and I think that's probably true of a lot of women my age who have sons, because there seems to be an entire generation of boys who failed to launch, and mine, you know, mine are kind of in that place. Not completely, but, you know, kind of. So anyway, so as far as other states, I'm still researching that. However, I will tell you a few of my impressions. I like rural living. I enjoy open spaces, acreage where I can keep animals. I don't like town. I don't like to go shopping. I am an absolute whiz at using the internet for shopping, like, you know, a lot of you guys are, a lot of us are now. And I know I would be happier in a country setting. South Dakota really appealed to me. It was a lot of corn, but a lot of beautiful open space. It had a real Western kind of vibe, which, you know, my area here does as well. It has a real Western, you know, rancher kind of thing going on. So that felt comfortable and homey. There are not many people in South Dakota, so you have to enjoy your alone time, which I do. So I think if Grant and I retire out of California, we're going to look for something like that. And something like that exists a lot of places in the United States. Texas, you can find places like that. As you mentioned, Missouri and Arkansas, Oklahoma, you can find places like that. it's Arizona, New Mexico, Arizona particularly, you can find areas like that. It seems to me that no place is truly cheap, and here's why. If the gas is inexpensive, the food is expensive. If the rent's cheap, then you've got issues. A lot of times you have issues with neighbors being problematic. And as an explanation of that, I'll use my own area as an example of that. Yes, I live in a really cool foothill community. It's really nice. It is relatively inexpensive to live here. I mean, relative to say town. So we have a lot of tweakers, and we have a lot of kind of, sketchy on the lam types. We've got a lot of problematic homeless that wander up and down the hill. We have issues because people without a lot of resources can live here fairly easily. Just because you don't have resources doesn't mean you're a tweaker, duh. But, just in general blanket terms, those things often go hand in hand. So, I love South Dakota. I also loved Vermont, which sounds like a weird place to think about retiring, but Vermont is beautiful, and it has a vibe to it that I just felt really comfortable with, particularly after meeting Barisi 420, because he lives in Vermont, and he's got lots of great, check out his channel, he's got lots of great videos about going four-wheeling and hanging out with his daughter who's special needs, and beautiful sunsets where he lives, all of that. After meeting him and kind of just feeling the vibe of the place, I could see Grant and I pulling up stakes and moving to Vermont. I really could. However, both places I just mentioned have cold, snowy, problematic winters, and I've been in cold, snowy, problematic winters before in my life. I've never lived in them, so I think if I were working, if I had to get up and go to a job every day, that would be a real issue for me, because it's just a problem to drive through the snow, to shovel out your driveway, to do all of the stuff you have to do to live in a very snowy, cold area. If I had to pick, I would pick snowy and cold winters over the mugginess of the South in a heartbeat. So I've pretty much eliminated the South as a permanent place to live. However, as a fascinating place to visit and to travel to, it's right up there on my list. New Orleans, particularly, even though I didn't get to go on this trip. I met and visited people I already knew. So many cool people in the South. Oklahoma City was just a real high point of the trip. So, I'm getting off topic, but so the answer to your question, which state would I like to go to relocate to, that is still an in-process answer. But for me, it would be rural. Also, just as an aside, I had originally thought of Southern Oregon as a place to retire, the coast of Southern Oregon. Oh my God, it is the most beautiful coastline anywhere in the United States, as far as I'm concerned. And I've seen the East Coast coastline. Maybe like the rugged sort of Maine coast. When I get to see that for the first time, I'll probably love that as well, because the Oregon coast is kind of similar, really rocky and beautiful. Oregon's got some issues too, but the Southern Oregon coast is definitely not off my list as a place to relocate to. It is expensive though, so you have to be careful, do your homework. Now, let's see, what's the next question? Chelle was mentioning South Missouri or North Arkansas. Missouri was pretty, but it was very humid. And again, the humidity, I can't take it. I just can't take it. Maybe when I get a little bit older, it won't be that big of a deal, but right now, No, I just would not be able to hang with it. Northern Arkansas, again, pretty, but the weather would be tough for me. But I think as far as cheap is concerned, I don't know about Missouri, but I do know Oklahoma is cheaper, and Arkansas probably is as well. So yeah. Oh, I know. Chelle also mentioned that she thought that, like me, she would want to come home to Central California after she did her big trip. Okay. I wanted to come home. I was homesick. But it wasn't so much that I was homesick for California, at least at the time. I wasn't driving home, you know, through Arizona and New Mexico and all that, heading for California, thinking, oh, I can't wait to get to California. That wasn't it. It was more, I can't wait to get home. However, in the time that I have been home, I've come to realize that Central California is a wonderful place to live, and it is the right place for me to live now. For a lot of the reasons I talked about already, if you have 3 days and enough money for a few tanks of gas, you can see everything from volcanoes, redwood forests that are just dense, almost rainforesty. Well, they are rainforesty because they are rainforests. You can see the glory of Yosemite. You can see the Gold Country. You can see deserts. You can go to a variety of different kinds of beaches. You can see San Francisco and Los Angeles, two of the most interesting towns, cities, places. They're fascinating for all kinds of reasons. You can go down to San Diego, which is it's got this whole other vibe. You can, you know, hop down into Mexico. It's just, the variety here is just astounding, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons why I love California, is because it's a microcosm of the entire United States in one state, and that is why I love it. All right. You also mentioned the crime and the expense of California. Yeah. California, it's getting worse quickly. For example, when I got home, my son told me that there had been a couple of incidences in the neighborhood where he's living, which is my mom's old house. Used to be out in the middle of nowhere. Now it's got some neighborhoods and, you know, different things built around it. Well, it's become suburban instead of rural. Okay, up the street there were 2 home invasions. One a couple of streets over, and then the next week one. I mean, you can look out the front window and see the house that was home invaded. And it wasn't one of those drug-related home invasions where the people inside know the people that are trying to get in. It was just a couple who had, you know, no connection to the people who came into their house and tied them up and robbed them and did God knows what. Then, a couple of days before I got home, my son saw someone in the front house, which is the big house on our property. We have a guest house and the big house. My son's been staying in the guest house, kind of keeping the dogs, taking care of the dogs and all that, and keeping an eye on the place. Well, he sees someone moving around. Normally he keeps the front house locked up. Apparently he didn't lock a door. That's what he says, because they didn't break in. The door was just open. So my son grabs a big old mag light and his BB gun. He puts on his cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and the only other thing he's wearing is a pair of tidy whities. And he sneaks up over to the other house, and he kicks the door in, and he jumps in with the mag light flashing at the guy, and, hey, who are you? And it turns out it was just some homeless tweaker guy looking for, I don't know, something to sell, something to steal. And the house was empty, which is kind of interesting. And the guy turns, and he's, you know, he takes one look at my son, and God only knows what he thought. Chris said he was backpedaling, and he was saying, "Oh well, no, I just want a place to stay warm. I just want to come out of the rain. Oh, I just want a glass of water. Oh, I just this, I just that." And my son says, he gets a smile on his face. He says, "Well," he says, "if you like it here, we can make it permanent. How's about I hit you over the head? How's about I shoot you with my gun, I hit you over the head, I tie you up, I'm going to keep you in one of these bedrooms, and then I'm going to let you out during the day and you can do work for me. I'll bring you some food, I'll let you go to the bathroom, and I'm going to make you sign something saying that you're here voluntarily. And so this isn't kidnapping. How'd you like that?" And if you knew my son, you'd understand just how frightening that would be to somebody, because he can kind of get his eyes spinning in 2 different directions. Yeah, he sort of channels John Belushi sometimes. Anyhow, I guess this poor kid, he made a beeline for the door and was yelling, "Don't worry, I'm not going to come back. Don't worry, I'm not going to come back." So that was yet another really frightening thing that happened. And frightening to me, too, because the guy could have had a gun. I mean, you never know. You just never know what you're going to face anymore. So, yeah, crime is a big issue. But it's an issue everywhere, I'm discovering. Tiny little towns in the South have big crime. The East Coast has a lot of crime. I mean, crime's everywhere. So, can you escape from it? Well, you could hedge your bets, maybe, but I don't think there's any real escaping. Not anymore. So, let's see, what other questions? That was about it. So anyhow, thank you, Chelle, for your really, really thoughtful comment. And I enjoyed thinking about those questions and answering them to the best of my ability. So, everybody have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.